What's up, guys? Hope you all are doing well. I've been asked to do a wrap-up video of World's Strongest Man 2023 and kind of share my thoughts. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this video, but now that I'm removed from the contest, I've had some time to kind of think about it. I think it's a good time to actually do it and kind of take some of the emotion out of it, so to speak. First and foremost, I want to congratulate the guys that were at the top. Mitchell Hooper on winning, Tom Stoltman on second, and Alexei Novikov on third. All of them performed very well and deserve to be up there on that podium. Going into World's Strongest Man, I know there were some questions about my leg. We put out the videos, kind of documenting what I had gone through in the build up to World's Strongest Man. I want to say that my leg was not a factor as far as the competition goes and really played no role. Yes, did I have to overcome that? Of course I did, but it was in the rearview mirror by the time we competed at World's Strongest Man, so that did not play a role in my performance. I want to say, with those videos, I really appreciate all of you reaching out, commenting. There were so many heartfelt things that were said. I really felt the love, and it meant a lot to me, you guys connecting with that, and I wanted to share that and what I went through to connect with you in that way, and I wish I could have had more time to respond to everybody that reached out, commented, that type of thing, but I just wanted to say thank you for all of that, because the support was really overwhelming and really made me feel special. So going into World's Strongest Man, I was ready to go. I was dialed in, felt good, got my group. Definitely a tough group, but I feel like all of the groups this year were tough. In the qualifiers, I felt like I performed very well. I won 2 of the events in the log ladder and the kettlebell toss. I tied for first in the deadlift, which I was happy about. I felt like my deadlift was in a great spot, so the performance there I was pleased with. The loading medley, 3rd place, really not that bad. I could have improved, a couple different things, maybe kind of got a couple seconds faster, which may have changed, 1 point there. And in the end, that might have been a big point, but I really feel like the event that I was disappointed with in the qualifiers was a Conan's wheel. And in the Conan's wheel, I ended up in 5th place. I was going out last, so I knew exactly what I had to do. And to be honest, I was so focused on getting my grip right and getting my feet in the right position and getting my pickup right that I just forgot to take that big breath that you need to take on a Conan's wheel before you take off and start going. And I realized that about a quarter of the way into the first turn, I just didn't have much air. So I just had to commit to it and go as far as I could before I was kind of on the brink of passing out. Unfortunately, my distance just was not good enough. And I opened myself up to not winning the group with that performance, and that ended up being the case. Jocko Schoonwinkel came through, won the group by half a point, and obviously congratulations to him. He was consistent throughout that, and looking back, I wish I could have found that extra half a point to win the group, because I had to go into a stone off with Rauno Heinla, and Rauno, as a great stone loader, I knew that going in, and he's definitely one of the guys that you do not want to get in a stone off situation with, because he can lift heavy stones and he can lift them a lot of times. So going into the stone off, I really had to tap into a spot mentally and then go to a spot physically that I wanted to save for the final. I did not want to tap into that in the qualifiers, but this was a moment where I got my back put up against the wall and I had to perform. It's a do or die moment, right? Like, if I'm not putting the stone back, I'm not advancing to the finals, and then you have no opportunity to win. So I kind of had to open it up full throttle and get to this spot, that I'd been saving mentally in the stone off. And, tapping into that, the stone off felt great. Every stone that I lifted felt very easy, and the last stone in the stone off was 440 pounds, 200 kilos. I felt like I could have lifted that all day, and I felt like the place that I got in my head and that reserve, that kind of dark place that I needed to go, I could have at that moment beat anybody at a stone off. It was feeling like nothing. I could have kept going. And, coming out of that, I definitely remember saying, well, that was easy. It was easy for me. But the after effects of being in that stone off were probably more of a death sentence in this World's Strongest Man competition than I realized at the moment. And what I have to remember is this is the first time that I've really been involved in a stone off. Although the stone off has been at World's Strongest Man for a number of years now, I have obviously always disagreed with it. I've shared that with you guys, and I always felt like it put the athletes that had to compete in the stone off at a massive disadvantage, especially if they had to do a big number of reps, because your recovery before the final is challenging enough. But when you have to go into that tank that deep, especially like I needed to, even with every effort that I tried to put into recovering and being ready to go for the final, I wasn't able to recover. And I think that's, in hindsight, really and truly what it kind of came down to for me. My training, all of the numbers that I put up here in the gym were very good. I was very confident about walking into World's Strongest Man and putting on a great show. I felt like I was fully capable of winning World's Strongest Man, especially with the events that we had in the final. So I did everything I could after the qualifiers to try to recover. Day one of the finals, we actually got some rain that came into Myrtle Beach, and the format of the contest was supposed to go Fingal fingers, then deadlift for reps, and then shield carry for max distance. And, for me, I was very excited about that format, with Fingal fingers being such a strong event for me. My game plan was to set the tone in the fingers, be able to know how many reps I needed to pull in the deadlift, and then be able to kind of dictate my distance, so to speak, in the shield carry and pick up as many points as I possibly could in that event. Instead of going in that order, because of the rain, they put the shield carry out first, and then we did deadlift, and then Fingal fingers. So I certainly had to deal with that change, but so did all of the other athletes. And, this is something from a preparation standpoint, I had run that over in my head so many different times. And, I tried to stay calm and say, all right, we'll just go out and execute and do, everything I could. But that definitely threw me off. Maybe I didn't deal with that as well as I should have. And, being in the sport, I've had these type of scenarios come up before, not very frequently, but, maybe it was I didn't deal with that very well. I'm not exactly sure, but I had to go out in the first pairing of shield carry, so I didn't really have a distance to go after. Although I did know what a distance that would be good probably was going to be. I went out and I'm not sure if it was a fatigue factor or, just coming out of the gate, a little bit quick, but I felt like I burned up pretty quick and was only able to make it to about 40 meters, which I knew when I dropped it was not going to be good enough for a good result in that event. So I definitely got frustrated with that and tried my best to kind of put that behind me and say, hey, let's move on, go into the deadlift. So I went out a little bit earlier on the deadlift for reps, and that meant that I had to number chase instead of knowing exactly what I needed to do. So I probably came out of the gate a little bit quick with deadlift in hindsight, and I was really in my head, I thought it needed to be kind of at that double digit 10 rep range, and unfortunately with the deadlift as well, just burn up really quick, and you ended up with 7, which was good enough for a second place tie, a multiple way second place tie in that event. So not terrible, but definitely not what I was hoping for in the deadlift. And then by the time the Fingal fingers came around on day one, I really felt like my back was against the wall. I needed to go out. I needed to have a big performance on Fingal fingers, which I felt like I was capable of, and really got through the first 4 quickly. And then on the 5th finger, I don't even really know what happened with that. I mean, the 5th finger for me, even my first year at World's Strongest Man, was something I flipped over. And so to get into the 5th finger, I'm not sure if my hand placements were a little bit too big, or I simply just ran out of gas not exactly sure on that one, but it did come down to my shoulder, and you're not allowed to shoulder the finger over, so I was trying to push it back out to arm's length. Just unable to do that. So finished with 4 fingers, and I knew, at that moment, that was a big, blow to my chances of being, toward the top of World's Strongest Man, finishing toward the top. And so I just had to kind of take a moment and go out and sit by myself a little bit. And the frustration was high. The disappointment was high. I felt like there were so many people that had supported me, were there at the contest supporting me. And that was tough. It was really, really tough for me, to not perform up to the standard that I was expecting and that my training would have indicated. So there's a lot of things, looking back. Was my sleep not as good as it should have been? Yeah, that was definitely a thing. I was not sleeping well, and I don't know if that was the bed. I don't know if that was my brain not turning off, me not calming down. I really don't know with that. But if you don't sleep, your performance is not going to be good. And then when I had to do that stone off, obviously it hurt me from a recovery standpoint, work output standpoint. And the simple fact is, I am, for a lot of these guys that are in the final, I'm more than 10 years older than them. Some of them closer to 15 years older than them. So, that's maybe going to be harder for me, as much as I hate to say that. And admit that it probably is going to be harder for me to recover in that kind of condensed period. So, staying out of the stone off would have been a good thing, and that maybe would have changed my results on day 1 of the finals and day 2 of the finals as well. But, that was kind of the moment where I was like, all right, I need to regroup and just kind of come out on day 2 and attack here. Circus dumbbell, day 2 of the finals. This was an event that I definitely was excited about through the training. My training results were good. In the warm-ups, I could definitely tell that the dumbbells felt heavier, and that's never something you want to feel. And circus dumbbell, even in my training, has always been an event where I can tell if I'm tired overall or I'm not, I'm fresh. And so for it to feel heavier than it should, definitely was an indicator that I was tired. Again, you strap it on, you go out, you do what you can do. Result was not what I wanted it to be overall. Going into the bus pull, again, I love truck pull, I love bus pull, I love any type of heavy pull. So I was really hoping that it would be hard, heavy, and it definitely was anything but that this year. There was 7 competitors that were separated by less than a second. So that's a massive indicator with the pull that it was too light, and especially for a World's Strongest Man contest, let alone a World's Strongest Man final. That's just something that's not good. It's not acceptable. It should be a lot heavier so you have separation there. I know I was disappointed about that. I think a lot of the fans and competitors were as well. So that was a massive letdown. Going into stones, I wanted to go out, with this being my last World's Strongest Man, I wanted to go out and put on a great show with the Atlas stones and give it everything I had. And I did do that. I did, give it everything that I had. And I could tell from the first stone that it was just way harder than it should have been as far as carrying the stones in, getting them loaded, that type of thing. The glutes and hamstrings just were not there, unfortunately. I got to the last stone. I was close, had it up kind of on the pedestal and just couldn't quite get it on. So, big disappointment to not lift the last stone. But I think that was just another indicator for me that the body just wasn't fresh and things just weren't there. So, going into World's Strongest Man, we all know the rules. We all know what we potentially are going to have to go through. The stone off is something that's not a surprise, certainly, to any of us. And so I think that, for me, staying out of the stone off is a massive thing. But I think for World's Strongest Man, as a competition, having the stone off instead of running the competition normally, where everybody would do the stones and then you have all the athletes doing potentially the same amount of work, instead of almost putting whoever is in the second and third spot at a massive disadvantage compared to the guys that win the group. I never have thought that was a good thing, and now I have quote unquote real world experience doing it. And I more so than ever believe that it's not a good thing. So, I don't know if they'll take a look at that and maybe reconsider a little bit. And I hope they do. I truly hope they do for the athletes in the future to make it more of a pure competition. Another thing that I want to address that's been said and talked a lot about is the refereeing. Refereeing, I think in general, within the sport of strongman, has not been at a standard that it should be at. And I think World's Strongest Man this year, a lot of people have pointed at the max dumbbell and the judging on the max dumbbell. And what needs to be said with this is it's never the athlete's fault. So as an athlete, if you get a down call, you should put the weight down. You shouldn't keep working at that point. And it really and truly falls back on the head referee that gave you the down call. And I think that there's a standard that needs to be held, especially at the top level in strongman. And I'm certainly not the one that's making the choices about who the head referee is going to be at World's Strongest Man. But if I was in charge of that, I would be making a hard look at who is sitting in that head referee chair. And I probably, if it was me, would be making some changes. But that is not up to me. I only hope that for the other athletes, that compete at World's Strongest Man and these other top-level contests in the future, that some changes can be made there, and that a high standard of refereeing can be maintained, because that's what the sport of strongman needs. It's what the athletes that put all of this hard work into these competitions, it's what they deserve. And when you have potential bad calls that are made by a referee, that can change the outcome of a competition, based on one lift. If one bad call is given, you need to make sure that standard is high, and that there are no lifts that are being passed at all that shouldn't be passed. So, I think that you guys can understand where I'm coming from, but all of the athletes deserve the best. They deserve a high level, and I hope that they can get that, certainly moving forward. And, overall, looking back at World's Strongest Man, I would be lying to you if I said that I was not disappointed with my performance overall. I feel like I didn't perform up to my capabilities, but with everything that came with the competition, what I had to fight through, and that type of thing, I can honestly say that I gave it everything that I had. It was not for a lack of effort or lack of trying or anything like this. And I think that at the end of the day, I can only look at myself and say, well, if I'm looking at the Stoneoff and saying that took a lot out of me, I should have figured out a way in the qualifier to get another half point so that I stayed out of the Stoneoff, and I didn't have to do that. So, again, falls back completely on me overall, but it's disappointing to go to World's Strongest Man, especially after the prep that I had and the shape that I was in, to not be able to fully put that on display and show everybody, all of the fans, that were there. And there's so many of you that traveled from around the world to come and see my last World's Strongest Man. And that meant the world to me. So, I was certainly putting a lot of pressure on myself and wanting to perform and go out on top, if at all possible. And I just wasn't able, to put that together. But after the contest, I was able to do meet and greets right after the event. So right on the beach there, and it was so neat. It was so neat to connect with all those people, that stood there for 5 hours waiting, to come say hi to me and get a picture and, tell me a story, that type of thing. And then I did it again the next day for another 5 hours. So, in those 2 days, those 10 hours that were spent doing appearances, that that is meaningful to me. And I feel like the connection, with all of those people just confirmed for me so many different things about my competitive, career at World's Strongest Man, and the reach and the message and how it's got out to people, and truly, for me, that's what this is all about. I mean, you can, I've said before, you can have, all the championships, all the trophies, all the, awards, titles, whatever, but if you are not making an impact with people, inspiring them, connecting with them, is it all really worth it? Probably not. So I feel like those two meet and greets that I did after World's Strongest Man had a big impact on me and were very, very meaningful to me at that moment. So you put the competition aside, you focus on that and get that done. And that left me feeling a lot better about things overall, if I'm being honest. And as frustrated as I was with World's Strongest Man, my performance, and the competitive side of me is never going to let that go. It just won't, and that's how I've always been. And I will say it's just tough. It's tough to end my World's Strongest Man, competitive career at World's Strongest Man with that performance. But again, it's something that was special in so many different ways. And, I had my wife, my boys, so many people that I knew that came out, and that made it more meaningful as well. So anyway, I think we're going to end the wrap up there. I am now moving on. My next and final competition will be the Shaw Classic here in Colorado in August. Already hitting the ground running, already planning, and that event will be incredible, to say the least. So I'm excited about it. I hope you guys are excited as well. I hope you're all doing amazing. For now, go out and be great, and we'll check you guys later.